Airs.com. Craftmatic beds come in all mattress types, including cool gel memory foam for up to 50% less than today's leading memory foam brand. Enjoy temporary relief of low back pain, poor circulation, nighttime heartburn, mild arthritis. You'll sleep better in a Craftmatic adjustable bed. So if you're still searching for the perfect solution to a good night's sleep, call now for prices and information. And then decide when you see how little they cost. Discover Craftmatic for less, up to 50% less than today's leading memory foam brand.
Call 1-800-689-0049. That's 1-800-689-0049. Call 1-800-689-0049. Call now.
If you're fed up with your credit card's high interest rates and your balances are so out of control that they never seem to go down, one call to Consolidated Credit can get the relief you need. Consolidated Credit has helped over 6 million people with credit card debt, and their certified credit counselors are ready to help you. They can consolidate your debts into one lower payment, reduce your interest rates, and get you out of debt fast without destroying your credit. The program works, and the consultation is free. Call Consolidated Credit now. Call 800-214-3104. 800-214-3104. That's 800-214-3104. Consolidated Credit Solutions, Inc., 5701 West Sunrise Boulevard, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 33313. Licensed by the New York Department of Financial Services and by the Vermont Department of Financial Regulation. Maryland DM 1492. Oregon DM 80092. Licensed by the Virginia State Corporation. Commission license number DC 83. Service may adversely affect the individual's credit. Non-payment of debt may lead to additional finance charges or collections activity, including legal action. Not alone.
And joining me now, Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff, the chair of the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman Schiff, Kellyanne Conway has said you should resign as committee chair. I assume you will not. But what about the evidence? You just heard her. You have said there is ample and abundant evidence of collusion, leaving the very strong impression there was illegal activity.
Well, you heard another display of alternate facts from Kellyanne Conway today, where she could not even acknowledge that the Russians tried to help the Trump campaign and did provide substantial help to the campaign. But look, I've been very clear over the last year and a half, that there is ample evidence of collusion in plain sight. And I use that word very carefully because I also distinguish time and time again between collusion, that is acts of corruption that may or may not be criminal, and proof of a criminal conspiracy. And that is a distinction that Bob Mueller made within the first few pages of his report. In fact, every act that I pointed to as evidence of collusion has now been borne out by the report. And I will also say that with respect to most of those acts involving the meeting at Trump Tower, involving the provision of polling data, involving the discussions between the National Security Advisor and the Russian ambassador, all these and so many more, Kellyanne Conway and the President of the United States called this fake news, disputed that these facts were even facts.
But
we now know from Bob Mueller they were facts.
You went farther than saying ample evidence. You once described to me on this program that the Trump administration's actions related to the Russia probe are, quote, of a size and scope probably beyond Watergate. What do you say now?
Well, I think it's clear from the Mueller report that that's exactly right. The obstruction of justice in particular in this case is far worse than anything that Richard Nixon did. The break-in by the Russians of the democratic institutions, a foreign adversary, far more significant than the plumbers breaking into the Democratic headquarters. So yes, I would say in every way this is more significant than Watergate. And the fact that a candidate for president and now a president of the United States would not only not stand up and resist Russian interference in our election, but would welcome it, goes well beyond anything Nixon did. The fact that the President of the United States would take Putin's side over his own intelligence agencies go well beyond anything Richard Nixon did. So, yes, I think it is far more serious than Watergate.
On obstruction of justice, based on the information in the report, do you believe the President did obstruct justice?
I do believe that he obstructed justice and did so in many ways. And I think that the Mueller report points out how the elements of obstruction are met in several instances, several courses of the president's conduct. What Bob Mueller said, and this is obviously directly contrary to what Bill Barr represented to the country, is that he felt bound by the Office of Legal Counsel opinion that he could not indict a sitting president. Now, Kellyanne Conway points to that as proof of innocence, but it's not. Bob Mueller made it abundantly clear he felt he could not indict the president. The most that he could do was say that the evidence did not exonerate the president. And I think the reason why he did that is because he could not only not indict the president, But I think he also felt that he could not say that the president should be indicted, because that would be effectively the same thing. That would cast the same stigma over the president that the president would be powerless to remove. So I think that's why Bob Mueller made that non-traditional prosecutorial judgment. He came as close to saying that the evidence of obstruction was evidence of a crime as he could within the Department of Justice regulations. And that's, I think, the point that he was trying to get across, that he preserved the evidence for when the president was out of office, and that he also laid out the evidence so that Congress could understand and undertake its own responsibility.
And Congressman Schiff, let's turn to impeachment. Senator Elizabeth Warren has tweeted, "The severity of this misconduct demands that elected officials in both parties set aside political considerations and do their constitutional duty. That means the House should initiate impeachment proceedings against the President of the United States. You've said, unless there's bipartisan support for it, it is a bad idea. But what about that constitutional duty or any precedent that this might set?"
Well, look, I think Elizabeth Warren makes an important point, and that is that the level of evidence in the Mueller report is serious and damning, and in a normal circumstance would be, I think, without question within the realm of impeachable offenses. We are, unfortunately, in an environment today where the GOP leadership, people like Kevin McCarthy, are willing to carry the president's water no matter how corrupt or unethical or dishonest the president's conduct may be. And in those kind of circumstances, when Mitch McConnell will not stand up to the president either, it means that an impeachment is likely to be unsuccessful. Now, it may be that we undertake an impeachment nonetheless. I think what we are going to have to decide as a caucus is, what is the best thing for the country? Is the best thing for the country to take up an impeachment proceeding because to do otherwise sends a message that this conduct is somehow compatible with office? Or is it in the best interest of the country not to take up an impeachment that we know will not be successful in the Senate because the Republican leadership will not do its duty? That's a very tough question, and I think it's one we ought not to make overnight.
Just a final question here, Congressman. You said the Attorney General, Bill Barr, did a grave disservice to the country by misrepresenting significant parts of the Mueller report. Congressman Eric Swalwell, your colleague in the Intel Commission, said Barr should resign. Do you think he needs to step down?
Look, I think he should have never been confirmed, and I said so at the time. And he absolutely should never have been even considered unless he recused himself from an investigation in which he had such an obvious bias. I'm not ready to speculate about whether he should resign or not, given that that's not going to happen anyway. But the fact of the matter is that Bill Barr views himself as the president's lawyer, not the Attorney General of the United States of America. And he, I think, quite deliberately misrepresented in saying that there was no evidence of collusion when that is not what the Mueller report says. When he said that there was no obstruction and that essentially Mueller wanted him to make that decision, gave the impression Mueller did not feel bound by the Office of Legal Counsel opinion, that misled the country. When he provided his own summary, and we now know that Bob Mueller had his own summary, there was nothing preventing Bill Barr from, if he wanted to give advance notice of what the report was going to say, to give Bob Mueller's own words. Bill Barr instead chose to mislead the country with his own spin, a spin that was embraced by the president. And I think that history will reflect that Bill Barr let the country down when it needed an attorney general of substance.
Okay, thanks very much for joining us this morning, Congressman. Up next, ABC's Terry Moran and Pierre Thomas break down all the fallout over the Mueller report when we come back.
Hi, I'm Joan London. When I needed to find senior care for my mom, I really struggled to find the right fit until I found an advisor, someone who had been through this before. That's why I recommend A Place for Mom, the nation's largest senior living referral service. They have experts who will help you ask the right questions and find the right place. Call A Place for Mom today.
To speak with a local senior living advisor, call A Place for Mom at 1-800-908-0265. That's 1-800-908-0265.
A Place for Mom has helped over 200,000 families find the right senior care for their parents, from assisted living to independent living, even Alzheimer's care, and have local advisors that can help explain your options at no cost to you.
To speak with a local senior living advisor, call A Place for Mom at 1-800-908-0265. That's 1-800-908-0265.
Call today.
The following ad contains shocking material. Listener discretion is advised. Is someone in your family playing a dangerous game of Russian roulette? Over 43,000 people die a year from drug overdose. 120 people a day. 5 people every hour. 1 person every 12 minutes. 88,000 people die every year from alcohol abuse. Over 240 people a day, 10 an hour. 1 person every 6 minutes. Somebody you know may be next. Learn how to help someone you love get away from the drugs, alcohol, and bad influences. With the FMLA, people can take a leave of absence from their job and still keep it. Call now and learn how we can help you. 800-707-9709. 800-707-9709. That's 800-707-9709.
Did the special counsel indicate that he wanted you to make the decision or that it should be left for Congress?
Special Counsel Mueller did not indicate that his purpose was to leave the decision to Congress. I hope that was not his view, since we don't convene grand juries and conduct criminal investigations for that purpose. But I am told that his reaction to that was that it was my prerogative as Attorney General to make that decision.
ABC's Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas there questioning Attorney General Bill Barr at his press conference before the release of the Mueller report on Thursday. Pierre joins me now, as well as Senior National Correspondent Terry Moran. Good morning to both of you. And Pierre, let's go right to that question. Was it Barr's prerogative to make that conclusion?
Martha, one thing that struck me about the press conference the other day is that Barr views himself as a colleague and a peer of Bob Mueller. He does not have Bob Mueller on a pedestal. And at the end of the day, his position is that I'm the Attorney General, he reports to me, it was my call to make.
And Terry, you said about a month ago on this program that if Mueller did not have evidence to support that the president aided the Russians, that's a reckoning for the progressives and Democrats. He has been cleared of conspiracy with the Russians. But does this report leave a clear reckoning for Democrats?
Well, I think it does. Donald Trump is not going to be removed from office for this, whatever the House of Representatives does. Donald Trump's not going to be frog-marched out of the White House in handcuffs. And the 2016 election is not going to be reversed by this. And too many Democrats and progressives
But even with the obstruction of justice, but even with the obstruction of justice that he did not make a determination, Mueller.
Yes.
Still a reckoning?
A reckoning for Democrats for sure, because now that hope is dead. And as a result, they are going to go to the public, as many of the candidates already are, with an argument more than, don't you hate him too? Don't you want to get rid of him too? And I think that is a positive reckoning for Democrats. This has been an obsession. This has been something that has consumed energy, political energy in the Democratic Party and in the media as well. And I think getting past that is good for the country.
And Pierre, but there are these other investigations, 12, 14, however many investigations there are. We know nothing about most of those investigations. Do you know anything?
So we only know about 2 of them. One involves Michael Cohen. The other involves former White House counsel Greg Craig. There are 12 others. And what it proves is that there will be echoes of the Mueller investigation long after he's closed up shop. It also means that you have the FBI and the Justice Department that will have to make more decisions potentially about the president and others.
And Terry, just finally, I want to talk about the seriousness of this Russian interference, however. That is at the heart of this. They did a lot to interfere in that election.
It was the most serious and dastardly attack on the American election process in our history. It was hacking of multiple computers. It was the effort to to slant the election to one way, is an attack on the count itself, trying to hack the counting machines to come up with a false result. It was the spread of fake news. All Americans should be united against that. I think one of the disappointments people have with President Trump is that he was so reluctant to acknowledge the obvious and defend the country. And I think there are questions about how much President Obama could have done at the time as well. But President Trump spent months. I was in Helsinki. I saw him do it, denying it.
Just
Martha,
10 seconds.
Real briefly. At one point, the Mueller report says that there were 59 computers associated with the Democrats that the Russians were rummaging through, and that they targeted hundreds of Clinton campaign officials and advisors. It's stunning. It was audacious.
And hopefully we're doing something about that next time. And the Powerhouse Roundtable joins me now, ABC News political director Rick Klein, NPR White House reporter Ayesha Roscoe, Republican strategist and ABC News contributor Sarah Fagan, and Democratic strategist and ABC News contributor Stephanie Cutter. Welcome, everyone. Happy Easter. And Rick, I'm going to start with you. The president and his team are claiming, as you've heard, complete vindication. Democrats say not so fast, and they want more investigation. Does this leave the country exactly where we were before, just completely divided, each person hearing what they want to hear?
This moment was climactic and anticlimactic at the same time. And it's an extraordinary thing where, in the political class at least, to say nothing of the public, we don't know yet, but in the political class, I think it's fair to say no one's mind was changed about President Trump. That doesn't mean that there aren't really serious things that are raised in the Mueller report, but it does mean that as a practical political matter, this just wasn't a game changer.
And Ayesha, the picture the Mueller report paints of the West Wing, and you heard me talk to Kellyanne Conway about this, it's not really a glowing one. The Washington Post put it this way: the vivid portrait that emerges from Mueller's 448-page report is of a presidency plagued by paranoia, insecurity, and scheming, and of an inner circle gripped by fear of Trump's spasms. You cover the White House every day. Is that the sense you get?
Well, I think what that report showed in very vivid imagery is how this is a White House where you have a president that is oftentimes disconnected from his staff. Oftentimes you'll talk to people and it's just like, we don't know what he's talking about. We don't know what's going on. And then what you see in this, and what I think will have the long-term implications, is this idea that the president tells people to do things and then they don't necessarily do them, and that he likes to push boundaries, and that so far he's kind of been confined by people not going through with some of his kind of boundary-pushing orders. But what happens when someone does something that he's asking them to do? Some of this has come up with the Department of Homeland Security. When he's asking them to do something that may not be legal, what happens when someone follows through on that?
And Sarah, it's kind of exactly what I was going to ask you. The report lays out these several instances when the president directed aides to do something they did not follow through on. Kind of a blessing in disguise in this case, it seems. But what does this tell you about the White House?
Well, I think for all the chatter about some of the Trump staff going into the administration about perhaps people not being qualified or perhaps him not having the best team, they actually turned out to be a great team for Donald Trump. They know him well. And as Bob Mueller pointed out in that report, which is the president was very frustrated with this investigation and believed that it was never true and never should have been conducted. And he had a staff, particularly in Don McGahn, who knew he was lashing out and didn't act on it. And as a result of that...
So they know when to ignore him and when not to?
Well, it's like anybody in a relationship. You know when somebody is frustrated and they're venting versus when they're serious. And I read this, and I think perhaps even Bob Mueller, to his credit, while that wasn't his job, is to psychoanalyze the president, he took that into account, that the people closest to Trump knew when Trump was lashing out and angry and upset about something he read because he felt it was unfair and unjustified, and when it was true. And Don McGahn served the president actually quite well in this regard.
And Stephanie, Senator Elizabeth Warren, as you heard, now calling for impeachment. Do you think many others will follow? Do you think that will happen? Do you think it should happen as we approach 2020?
I think that there will be more that call for impeachment proceedings, but I think by and large, most Democrats are looking for Democrats to do their job. And what does that mean? It means that they've got to continue investigating and get the facts. And a big piece of that is getting Bob Mueller to testify before the House. I think that this debate, you know, we all think of this debate in this moment as a static debate. What should Democrats do? What should they not do? I think if Bob Mueller comes and testifies to the country and even just, he could just read off of the report, I think that's a big moment. A big moment, not just for Democrats, but for Republicans. All the questions this morning have all been about what Democrats should do. What should Republicans do? Republicans...
But is the country exhausted by this?
Sure,
I go out in the country, people aren't even tracking
They are exhausted. It's not coming up on the campaign trail. I think that we've all realized that. However, I was struck by something a freshman Democrat said over the past couple days. Abby Spanberger, who is a new member from Northern Virginia, swing district. She said, is it divisive? Absolutely. It's divisive to start impeachment proceedings. Does that mean we shouldn't do our job? No. We need to do our job. So the question is, how does that all flow? Remember, there was a year of investigation before impeachment proceedings started on Richard Nixon. Democrats have some more investigating to do. They've asked for his tax returns. Let's look at what's happening with his business with Russia. Why is he so cozy with Russia? He invited Russian interference in this election. Why? We need to get to the bottom of that.
And Rick, on that same vein, this wasn't the report that many Democrats were hoping for, and Congress is continuing to push forward for investigations. But I was struck by the focus of the Democratic address this week from Representative Debbie Dingell. She talked about health care. She talked about jobs. I think the message was pretty clear in that of just move on. Let's not get into the Trump accusations again and again and again.
I think the answer for Democrats may not necessarily move on, but move to the side, this whole issue. And if it isn't impeachment, maybe it kind of looks like impeachment light, where you've got a whole series of investigations. And I think Chairman Schiff, in your interview a few moments ago, hinted at this, that, yeah, there's probably enough if you want to impeach the president to say there are high crimes and misdemeanors, and you can pursue that. But that isn't necessarily, well, it's almost certainly not going to be successful. And short of that, there's lots you can do inside the confines of the Mueller report, plus other things around there. And by the way, I think 2020 candidates would like to see that handled on Capitol Hill because it takes the pressure off of them. They are not being asked about it. They want to have a good answer. I think it's helpful for them to say, look, the process is working its way through, when as a functional matter, we know this is going to be litigated in next year's election, not through impeachment.
And how much focus do you think there will be on this? What are you hearing from voters? What do you think is happening out there in terms of this report?
It seems like, as always, voters are focused on kind of those bread and butter issues, the economy, health care, and it has seems like that's what Democrats have been talking about on the trail. They haven't necessarily been leading with, we're going to impeach the president. I think that there is a case for people that are very adamant about wanting to see some type of justice when it comes to the president. Those Democrats who are like...
Illinois energy customers are being increasingly targeted by telephone scammers. The callers threaten to shut off power if payment is not made immediately. Don't fall for these scams. Your energy provider will never demand payment over the phone. If you suspect a scam attempt or have questions about your bill, call your energy company and get the real information. Sponsored by the Energy Education Council with support from Ameren, Illinois.
The following ad contains shocking material. Listener discretion is advised. Is someone in your family playing a dangerous game of Russian roulette? Over 43,000 people die a year from drug overdose. 120 people a day. 5 people every hour. 1 person every 12 minutes. 88,000 people die every year from alcohol abuse. Over 240 people a day. 10 an hour. 1 person every 6 minutes. Somebody you know may be next. Learn how to help someone you love get away from the drugs, alcohol, and bad influences. With the FMLA, people can take a leave of absence from their job and still keep it. Call now and learn how we can help you. 800-707-9709. 800-707-9709. That's 800-707-9709.
Why should we let this just slide? We should be more aggressive. And so I think that's why you see Elizabeth Warren coming out and saying, look, this rises to the level of impeachment. Let's at least look at this, because there is this need, I think, on the Democratic side to put up a fight among some. I think for a lot of average Americans, they're probably going to be focused on those pocketbook issues.
And Stephanie, let's move on to the Democrats a little bit here. The Trump campaign raised about $1 million from its supporters after the Mueller report. They also raised more than $30 million in the first quarter, as much as Senators Bernie Sanders and Kamala Harris, the two top fundraisers. Is that a bad sign for Democrats?
Well, yes. But it's also
quite simply, yes.
It's also a sign
of going forward,
the power of the incumbency. You know, I've been on the other side trying to re-elect a president, and that power of incumbency cannot be underestimated in a presidential campaign. He's got the time and the resources to put together a campaign. He doesn't have to go through a primary. We've got, as of today, 18 people running. When Biden gets in, we'll have 19 people running. That's a lot of money being split. That's a lot of effort.
Moulton gets in this week.
Seth Moulton, that'd be 20.
Massachusetts, another veteran.
Another veteran. And so, you know, the challenging party going through a primary is much more difficult than the power of the incumbency. I also think raising money off of the Mueller report, he's got a very active base, and he stokes it every single day. We've seen it. He's trying to destroy Mueller's credibility even after the report comes out. That has an impact on its base. It has an impact on our base, too.
Should Biden be the face of the Democratic Party?
I would argue... Go ahead.
You can go. Yeah.
I would argue that if Democrats were smart, they would nominate somebody like Joe Biden. I mean, the reality is Donald Trump is...
Stephanie's smiling there.
Yes. Well, what strikes me as a Republican operative is how quick many Democrats dismiss this idea and say Joe Biden is not the future of the Democratic Party. But I look at it quite differently, which is Donald Trump is actually in the strongest position he's ever been to be reelected. He has a very strong economy, and he was just exonerated from the underlying charge of this Russia conspiracy. And many of Donald Trump's supporters, and even people who are swing supporters, people who maybe don't like everything about Trump but like his policies, look at this and say, he was unfairly treated in this process. He is strongly positioned to be reelected. The Democratic Party going and talking about Medicare for all, free college education, free health care, taxes on everybody to pay for all of these things, that is not a winning message. Joe Biden is a sensible, middle-class individual who people respect and like.
I want to ask our two reporters here to talk about lessons learned. What lessons did the Republicans and Democrats learn from the past 2 years?
I think that's very hard to say, because I think in D.C., do people really learn lessons? But I think that...
Or they might learn the wrong ones.
They learn the wrong ones. But I think what is interesting, and this kind of goes off of what was just being said, is when Donald Trump came into office, he came into office as the outsider with very not sensible ideas, but we're going to have a wall and Mexico is going to pay for it. And now it's kind of reverse. Now he's the incumbent, trust me, and all of these Democrats have these very kind of wild ideas. Do we want to trust them? But what I think that what we saw with President Trump is that things that look very kind of wild and outrageous to the kind of D.C. establishment can quickly become the norm if they are sold in the right way. And so I think that Democrats, even though they're looking at these bold ideas, that may be what they need to do to get the attention and to get the attention of voters.
And for Republicans, I think these last 2 years have tracked President Trump's hijacking and complete takeover of the Republican Party. Mitt Romney notwithstanding, Republicans are still behind him, and they're going to be in with him for better or for worse through 2020. For Democrats, I think their expectations around Mueller probably were unrealistic. They were hoping that Mueller would kind of be a get-out-of-jail-free card, and this would get the hard work done for them, when in fact the whole political environment created President Trump, and it's going to take politics to oust him. And if Democrats want to defeat him, they're going to have to do it the hard way. They're going to have to do it by grinding out over the course of a campaign. It's not going to be solved for them by Bob Mueller or any other outside force.
Okay, thanks to all of you, and have a great day today.
Keyboard Cat, Hamilton the Pug, and Toast Meets World. These are some of the internet's most beloved pets. And they all have one thing in common. Their stories started in a shelter. Start your story. Adopt a dog or cat today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Training that pet to play the keyboard, that's optional. Start a story. Adopt a shelter or rescue pet today. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Okay, what are you wearing right now?
Nothing.
That's right. So Mommy's going to teach you how to dress yourself. Underwear always comes first, name tag at the back, then pants, then shirt. Get the first button in the right hole or you have to start all over. Socks going first, then shoes, right on right, left on left. With shoelaces, just take the ends, cross them over, switch the loops, the rabbit goes down the hole, pull tight, and you're left with bunny ears. Got it? Why are your pants on your head?
Most parenting's hard to do in just 2 minutes. But 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush their teeth is easier, and it could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain. Visit 2min2x.org to find out more. A message from the Partnership for Healthy Mouths, Healthy Lives, and the Ad Council.
How's it going? I'm having a stroke. Are you going to shake my hand? I'm having a stroke. Wow, you're not even moving your arm. I'm having a stroke.
When someone is having a stroke, they may not be able to say it with words, but their body language will tell you loud and clear. Look for FAST. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911 immediately. Know the sudden signs. Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
The storks are bringing me a baby brother. We can do this together.
All right, let's go.
Storks know how to keep kids safe. Do you?
What?
Oh my gosh, you don't know.
I know.
You don't. Oh man, you laugh when you're uncomfortable.
No. Making sure your child is in the right car seat is one of the steps to safer travel.
I will rock this.
You will rock this.
To know for sure that your child is in the right car seat for their age and size, visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat.
Cool. Very cool.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
That's all for us today. Thanks for sharing part of your Easter Sunday with us. And we extend our thoughts to the people of Sri Lanka after those devastating bombing attacks on churches and hotels there this morning. Have a good day.
We all need someone who'll pull no punches and give it to us straight. No bull, no spin. Now imagine getting your news like that. Just give it to me straight. ABC News, straightforward.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star, and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
You make sure his toys don't have any sharp edges. You taught her what to do when the smoke alarm goes off. You do so much to keep your child safe. But are you using the right car seat for your child? Car crashes are a leading killer of children ages 1 to 13. Protect your child's future at every stage of life. For information on the right seat for your child, visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat.
A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
So you see, son, good manners are important. Should I go through it again?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Exactly. Always say please, thank you, you're welcome, and excuse me. Sit up straight, hold doors open. Don't speak with your mouth full. Keep your elbows off the table. Share your things, play nice, and generally treat others the way you'd like to be treated. Got it?
Got it.
And stop picking your nose.
Most parenting's hard to do in just 2 minutes. But 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush their teeth is easier, and it could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain. Visit 2min2x.org to find out more. A message from the Partnership for Healthy Mouths, Healthy Lives, and the Ad Council.
I'm a retired school psychologist, and helping people was my thing. After my stroke, when Meals on Wheels started, I was on the other end of the stick, so to speak. My name is Julius Gaines, creative writer, poet, photographer.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
You're listening to the Heartland Newsfeed Radio Network, broadcasting live 24/7 at heartlandnewsfeed.com.
This is the Liberty Beat, your daily source for liberty news and activist updates. Produced in partnership with SNLS News and listeners like you. Online at libertybeat.news and snls.news. I'm Mick Murrow reporting for the weekend edition of the Liberty Beat. Gold is trading around $1,276, silver at $14.98, and Bitcoin is trading around $5,275. Today's prices are brought to you by InnoScale. Take off with Managed Cloud. Looking for a safe, secure way to store your important files online? Let InnoScale handle it for you. Their high availability cloud servers are the perfect solution for clients needing one or more secure, scalable servers with built-in hardware failover protection. For details, see them online at innoscale.net. In the news, U.S. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has proposed the U.S. cut military and economic aid to Israel worth $3 billion a year in response to the re-election of Benjamin Netanyahu as prime minister. Ocasio-Cortez explained that there are many ways to protect the Palestinians from Israeli violations, including a bill proposed by Democratic Minnesota Representative Betty McCollum that would prohibit U.S. aid to Israel from being used to detain Palestinian children in the West Bank. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pledged during his election campaign to annex illegal settlements built on the Palestinian lands in the West Bank. Ocasio-Cortez's view on Israel and Palestine has received extensive media attention. The Democratic candidate expressed her support for the Palestinians during the Land Day protests in Gaza, in which 135 Palestinians were killed by Israeli occupation forces. The Liberty Beat is sponsored in part by Brave Botanicals, high-quality kratom and CBD at reasonable prices with excellent customer service. Brave Botanicals is activist-owned and mission-driven, fighting for your right to consume plant-based medicine and natural remedies. Find out more at mybravebotanicals.com. And right now, Liberty Beat listeners can save 10% by using promo code SNLS at checkout. This is the latest edition of the Liberty Beat. Find us online at libertybeat.news and snls.news. Your news now continues. The Trump administration has declared the most severe new sanctions against Cuba since President John F. Kennedy imposed an economic embargo banning all trade with the communist island in 1962. Speaking in Miami on April 17th, the anniversary of the United States' failed 1961 invasion of Cuba's Bay of Pigs, National Security Advisor John Bolton announced the end of virtually all non-family travel to Cuba and placed new limits on the money Cuban Americans can send to family on the island. He also said the U.S. will now implement a 23-year-old law aimed at blocking both U.S. and foreign investment in Cuba, first passed by Congress in 1996 as part of a broader sanction package against Cuba, but put on hold because it triggered immense opposition among U.S. allies. The anti-media reports the harsh new sanctions reverse the disastrous Obama-era policies and finally end the glamorization of socialism and communism. That's according to Bolton. Trump's decision activates a long-suspended 1996 provision of U.S.-Cuba sanctions that allows Cuban Americans to sue in U.S. courts any company that benefits from private property of theirs confiscated by Fidel Castro's regime. In a highly disturbing video, 4 black men were chained to a table in a prison while a single white man was allowed access to a knife to brutally stab them. The graphic and hard-to-watch video is now the subject of a federal lawsuit filed earlier this month in the Southern District of Ohio. The Free Thought Project reports the 2 officers, identified only by their surnames of Fay and Dalton, laughed as 4 inmates were brutally stabbed in June of 2017, according to the suit. The cornerstone to the lawsuit is the surveillance video showing the horrifying event unfold as 4 men played cards only to be repeatedly stabbed by a psychotic and violent white supremacist. Shemaki Pugh and Maurice Lee are the plaintiffs in the lawsuit, which is seeking a modest $75,000. The suit claims the victims' civil rights were violated, including that they suffered cruel and unusual punishment because of the inaction of the prison guards. As the men are bleeding from their stab wounds, one of the guards says, quote, "We should just let them die." Support for the Liberty Beat comes from the Conscious Resistance Network, featuring videos, news reports, and articles from a spiritual anarchist perspective. Experience the Conscious Resistance at theconsciousresistance.com. How would you like to have your business featured on the Liberty Beat? You can. Just send an email to libertybeat@snls.news for details. This is the Liberty Beat, produced in partnership with SNLS News and listeners like you. The Liberty Beat is online at libertybeat.news and snls.news. I'm Mick Murrow, reporting for the Liberty Beat, reminding you, spread liberty with a smile.
When it comes to your education, there's no need to settle. Get the interactive and purposeful education that you and employers demand from Colorado State University Global Campus. You'll get personalized, career-driven learning created and taught by today's industry leaders. CSU Global was built to help students succeed with affordability, flexibility, and individualized support. It's time to expect better. Find your path to the career you want at csuglobal.edu, where online education isn't another thing we do, it's all we do.
The USA Radio Network presents the greatest radio programs of all time.
Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to hear is true. Only the names have been changed to protect the innocent. Dragnet.
This is classic radio theater.
Gangbusters!
I was a communist for the FBI.
Lights out, everybody.
Now here's your host, Wyatt Cox.
Brian Donlevy as Steve Mitchell in another dangerous assignment from April 14th, 1951, the Middle East, and a tray of dirty dishes.
Dangerous Assignment, starring Brian Donlevy as Steve Mitchell.